Hello and welcome back to my Let's Challenge of Final Fantasy XIII. In the last episode, we finished off Chapter 4 and we began making our way through the Gapra Whitewood here in Chapter 5. Now, one thing I should do is, I feel like now will be a good time to do another one of my story roundups that we've done at the start every time we've started a new, chapter, and this is the first episode that started in Chapter 5, so it seems like a good point to go through what happened in Chapter 4 and go through all that. So after our heroes escaped the Sanctum forces at Lake Brescia, they then crash landed on the Vile Peaks, these vast, essentially this vast rubbish dump of just artifacts, both Polscian and not, that was left there by the Sanctum after the War of Transgression. So again, War of Transgression, great war between Cocoon and Pulse, Pulse being the much larger planet below Cocoon, that Cocoon sort of floats above. There's a large war between the two planets. The Pulse forces broke the Cocoon, the shell. You know, Cocoon, as I've always said, is a shell, a spherical shell, and they broke that shell, but they could never actually get inside Cocoon itself. And then, in the aftermath of the terrible war, the damage done to Cocoon was repaired in part by the Sanctum Falsi using pieces that were gathered from the surface of Pulse itself. So loads of Pulse artifacts randomly around on Cocoon here in the Vile Peaks. Anyway, our heroes split up and we find out some new things. For example, we find out about how Lightning volunteered. She did not need to be purged because she is part of the armed forces, but she volunteered to be purged because of Sarah and because she wanted to save her sister. We also find out that Hope was caught. He is not a native of the seaside town of Bodum. He is actually from another town called Palumpolum. He was merely visiting Bodum to see the fireworks display on, I believe it's day 11 of the 13 days before the game begins. But on that 11th day, he was visiting to see the beautiful Bodum fireworks display with his mother, and unfortunately they just got caught up in the Lassie hysteria and were not able to get back home. Anyway, we move on from that, and we rejoin with Lightning eventually, and then as they move through, they've eventually got to make a decision as to what on earth they're doing next. And Lightning has a clear plan. She wants to attack the Sanctum where it hurts. She sees the Sanctum as essentially a voice for all Falsi. She looks at what Falsi have done for her. They have taken away her sister. They have now reduced her to a Lassie slave. She feels completely like the Falsi are just using her, and she wants to get revenge. So she looks at the Falsi, and the fact is that Cocoon is run by Falsi just as much as Pulse was. So she looks at the Sanctum Falsi, who provide food, who provide water, light, energy, and government. All of these things are provided by Falsi. And she's like, why must we be provided by Falsi? She tries to reiterate to her friends that she is looking to attack just the Sanctum and all it stands for, and the Falsi themselves, not necessarily just trying to destroy Cocoon as their focus might want them to. She's not aiming to complete her focus, she's doing this purely for herself. However, she also notes that given that her plan of action does tend towards the destruction of the world, that she might run into Snow, who obviously is very much wanting to try and save Cocoon. He believes so wholeheartedly in that. Hearing that Lightning might go against Snow, Hope tags along with Lightning, immediately realising he still wants vengeance for what happened to his mother. So Lightning and Hope split up. They go off as a twosome, and but before they can leave the Vile Peaks, Lightning suffers a crisis. A crisis of confidence. She doesn't know whether to allow Hope to continue on to babysit him, as she so calls it, or whether she should just leave him behind. And in order to help her make her decision, her Eidolon Odin appears, and they fight, and Lightning rallies to help Hope become stronger and keep him with her. They then have now entered the Gapra Whitewood as we are now here. On the other hand, Saz and Vanille their plan is literally just to go in the opposite direction to wherever the danger is. In this case, that is away from all of the chaos that Lightning and Hope are bound to cause. So they head the opposite direction. And finally, we know Snow. Snow is currently a captive of the Cavalry. The Cavalry being not Sanctum forces, but a sub-branch of the Guardian Corps. The largest, they're essentially a roaming battalion with a massive ship. One massive, huge cruiser that sort of cruises around. And they're not restricted to a certain area. They essentially visit all the areas. So a free roaming unit called the Cavalry. They are part of the Guardian Corps, and they are run by a guy called Cid Raines. They also seem to be working alongside a Lassie themselves, a mysterious Lassie. We don't know much about her, but they obviously have plans for Snow, and we are yet to see what they are. Anyway, that's enough from me. We're now going to start our, continue on, I should say, here in Chapter 5. And yeah, so we're still tagging along. We've got Lightning and Hope here, and yeah, our various Crystarium. None of the Crystariums. I think I might have done a little upgrading in between, but none of it really matters. We shouldn't be too worried about much of this. So anyway, we've got some frag leeches here. We've already faced these enemies before. They're relatively. They're nothing too much to be worried about, and indeed we have Lightning with her blitz is just really going to run through these guys. There you go. Now the reason that obviously Lightning could attack so fast is because she has, I can't remember what upgrade, I can't remember what it's called, but she is one of the commando upgrades, which means that you get an autofill of your ATB meter whenever you take out an enemy, which is a very useful thing to have. So obviously we've got a behemoth here. The battle will be made much easier if we can get preemptive. Is he going to turn around? No, he's not. Well. So, Alpha Behemoth. Now, I mean, these early behemoths are sort of more just there just to sort of show you the, you know, the sort of the size of some of your enemies that you're going to be facing. They're largely not too scary. I mean, they deal a decent amount of damage per hit, but nothing too crazy. Later behemoths you see in the game are far more deadly, far more worrying enemies to be dealing with. There we go, nice. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm really not seeing any reason for us to actually even need to heal at the moment. We're really he's already down to half health as well, which is rather surprising almost. Anyway, you. And we should definitely take him out before the before he gets to charge. You know, charging 100%. Take him out now. There we go. Lovely.
Just another battle.
So a very simple battle there, just going between Relentless Assault and... Sorry, not Relentless Assault. Slash and Burn and... the other one. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, so Vespids. Do we know everything about these guys yet? No. So let's just quickly review. Just to be sure. We want to get Stagger, and then hopefully we'll be able to use Commando just to take him out. We might want to put on some... I might want to put on some buffs. Just thinking about it. Yeah, bar fire was more important actually. Anyway. But it looks like, there you go, so now this Vespid is actually primed to actually be relatively dangerous towards us, but we should still be fine. Always a bit worried with his hope boost, because obviously he has so little health that most anything can take him out. But we should actually be able to interrupt. There we go, good.
Just another battle.
So, nice and simple. Nothing, again, really to worry about. We can grab ourselves a Hawkeye, which is, I think, Hope's best weapon. So Hawkeye, as you can see, ups Hope's magic. That's the only thing we actually ever need to worry about with regards to Hope. We also get Magic Wall, which just takes off the first 5 hit points of any magic attack that hits you, but really, really nothing, nothing too dramatic there in terms of in what the in how much damage you're taking. Anyway, more Thextrans. So we'll just zip through, hopefully crash through a few of these battles. Congratulations, you completely missed. And again, we're doing a good job of missing at the moment. Beautiful, lovely. So, that is that. Now, we've got some more Thextrans and a Vespid, and then the last battle, as you can see, of this small area. Chapter 5 is much longer than just this. But yeah, the last of this area. I think we'll take out the Thextrans first, just because they go down much faster. Might want to think about healing. I think we should be fine. That's great. Just to be sure. So we'll just move to sack this guy, and then yeah, so yeah, we'll finish off this little section. We get another cutscene, I believe, when we reach the large bulkhead that's at the end of this path, and then we'll be able to continue to progress. So yeah, I mean, most of these early the early enemies in this chapter aren't particularly scary at all. But as soon as we start meeting the more feral creatures that there are in this area, they're slightly more annoying. Mainly because they have like the capability of poisoning you and afflicting various ailments. What are they called in this game? I want to say status conditions, but I'm pretty sure that's Pokemon. And I just realised how kind of similar it is. Go battle. Status effects, so similar. Anyway. So as Lightning says, there's a bulkhead Falsi. We've also got this Alpha Behemoth and 2 Thextrans. We'll make sure we'll take out the Thextrans first, as you would expect. We may need to go to something a bit more defensive than normally would. So hopefully we'll take out that Thextran. We don't want a Warcry. Ow. So anyway, War and Peace, because obviously I need health. I think a lot of these battles are very helpful because it sort of gives you a really good illustration as to whether you're like attacking, as to whether you're being too defensive, too offensive, stuff like that. You know, whether you're taking too much damage too quickly, too little damage, not dealing enough damage too quickly. Certainly, you know, any enemy which sort of has you know, various stages according to whether how long the battle is or stuff like that is always interesting because it does that extra time pressure does add. There you go. Charging power 90%. Let's see. Are we going to be able to take you out before? I don't think I've ever seen an Alpha Behemoth fully go man. I think. Oh no, definitely, because there's a battle later on with 2, I think, and that would certainly, you'd think. I'm hoping. There we go. Nice. Maybe a little closer than you'd want, but nice and simple. And then, as Lightning says, this is one of the bulkhead fallacy, so you have lots of major fallacy, like the ones we've been talking about in terms of... We'll meet a lot later on, but like you've got fallacy that control food, and like we obviously saw Phoenix before, which is the fallacy that is in the sky and provides the sun and all that sort of stuff. But there are also minor ones like this one. There's just a minor fallacy that just controls this door, stuff like that.
How the others are doing.
Saz and Vanille? Who knows? Even if they got away, they'll get caught eventually. Then they'll have to choose. Resist or surrender.
Surrender? Do you think he's still alive?
You mean Snow? He's too stubborn to die. And that's his best quality. He's arrogant and chummy from the get-go. Thinks he's everybody's pal. Never liked him much. He leads around a bunch of kids. Gang called Nora.
Where'd they get the name Nora?
It's a stupid acronym. Their little code stands for no obligations, rules, or authority. Must be nice.
It's irresponsible.
Well then.
So there we go. We get a nice little cutscene there, getting some more conflict. You get to the point where I think Lightning certainly understands that Hope has some issue with Snow. Anyway, so we're now going to end up in these bioweapon research sites, and the next part of this level forms. I think this is pretty much.
Feral creatures here too. They're a little different from the military breeds.
In many ways, Lightning can explain it much better than I can.
Facility for turning wildlife into weapons.
Civilians aren't allowed in here, are they?
We'll have to be sure and tell them if we see any.
So, anyway, before we get into these battles, let's quickly see if we can get anything more. That roll level would be very nice. Is there any actually abilities that we want? I think definitely that makes more sense. And then with lightning, we want. Yeah, we do want ravage. Just thinking of what sort of what each of my character does most of the time. Anyway, so yeah, what this section of the game is all about is essentially, obviously, you have the pens. So if you see over in the distance that force field is blocking our way. We can't actually exit this area until you take out all of the wild enemies, all of these feral creatures that are located inside these pens. And so we must begin taking out these enemies. So silver lobos. They're a bit more dangerous, certainly than the Thextrans, but some of the more dangerous enemies in this area. They do a lot of damage, but they've got this ability of essentially they can poison you, and then nice. That's it. That is why launch is so damn good. But yeah, no, they have the ability to poison you, and then they also have a special move. I can't remember what it's called, but essentially it does much greater damage to you if you are poisoned. So. As you can see, lightning is again being very instructive as to all of the things going on. So, we now know from our first battle that these guys are weak to fire, as a large number of the enemies in this area are. Nice dodge, lightning. I'm only doing this just because it'll help me at least. I'm only ever worried about hope, really. But yeah, I mean, launch should do a bunch to that silver lobo. Lovely, so there we go. I believe the first few battles in this area are literally 1 silver lobo, 2 silver lobo, and then I think we have 3. Yeah. So sort of like, well, you know, meet these new enemies. Meet these new enemies, now battle loads of them in a row. I'm hoping that's preemptive. Yes, there we go, nice. That works very nicely. Let lightning launch one of these, and then we'll swap to another one. Ah, half damage. That's good. Okay, so now we need to find the one that we were trying to stagger. You'll start to see how much damage these guys can do rather fast, but we should be okay because, yeah, these guys should... The ones that we've injured should go down relatively fast, hopefully. As long as we don't get poisoned, we should be okay. Yeah, there you go. Very virulent breath is the thing that you want to worry about. That's what causes poison. So you can see poison is donated by the sort of the rather sickly green bubbles coming out of a character, sort of emanating from a character. Sort of just there to tell you they're ill. We should hopefully, and then yeah. So there you go. Envenomate is the damaging attack that I was talking about that these lobos can use whenever you are poisoned. So obviously, if you've got multiple of these enemies, and you get poisoned early on in the battle, then that can be a real issue. But anyway, so we're just going to see if we can preemptive these guys. Nope. But it's just 2. We've already fought 2, so they should be fine. Shouldn't even need to be too aggressive with this. I must say, Lightning does have great casting speeds for her spells. It's just, Do, do. So, there we go. Fire, fire, fire. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Nice and simple. Didn't need to be defensive whatsoever, just pure attack. So now, we can head up here. These new enemies, or have we already seen these guys? Sort of new to branch, sort of like enemies. They are crawlers, and we have not met them yet, but we meet them in large numbers, and I believe they are weak to fire, so I'm just going to kind of cheat and use my prior knowledge to sort of suggest that we can just... they like ganging up on one person, it looks like. So we've just got to be aware of that. Oh yeah, I don't have bravery on this. That was me thinking I could get all aggressive, but no. No, fire, yeah, like I say, a lot of the enemies in this area are weak to fire, including these guys. And down they go. Crawlers, you generally only see enemies like that in very large numbers, so we'll see more of them. And there you go, there's a nice little illustration. If you're getting antidotes...
Even more violent and unpredictable than the trained to kill variety. Be careful.
If they're giving you antidotes in the game, then you should know that you should be around enemies that might want to be poisoning you. Anyway. So, I'm hoping that we can just cast Fira here. Yeah, there we go. Nice. So Fira should stagger all of these guys. And then Lightning should just come in and blitz and be done. Oh no, she's launching. That's the only bad thing about launch, I would say. Is that occasionally when there's a scenario where you just want your commando to blitz several weak enemies in a row, they will actually launch them individually, which isn't nearly as fun. Anyway, so we've got some crawlers and a Lobo. We will take out the Lobo first. Because obviously it has the ability to poison us is far more worrying, really. Should be okay. Might want to just... Nice. I think they're weaker to... No. So yeah, they just have halved attacks from water and weak to fire. That's all the interesting things about the crawlers. So, there we go. Nice and simple. So... I think now we're going to get, yeah, so now we have a nice little scripted event.
Caged in like the animals.
And we meet our first feral behemoth, and this guy is far more dangerous than the alphas that we've seen before, the sort of... They have, I believe he doesn't have nearly as high a stagger point as his feral friends, but anyway, just make sure we lever you. There you go, only 120. But he does 150 in a hit, which is not good news for me. So we will hopefully have Lightning launch this while we get some defense. kidding me? So heave is the dangerous. Heave is the dangerous attack that these guys have essentially. Obviously, it does. I mean, that did 330 damage with shell. This is with protect, going to show that that would have done a pretty horrifying amount of damage had we not had the protect up, and lightning would most probably have died. And obviously with hope just not having a lot of HP in general. Attacks that do that much HP are very scary, but there we go. We should hopefully should finish Sky off within this, and then there we go. Down he goes. Down goes the feral behemoth.
We've tripped the security alarm. The observation battalion will be coming.
Let him come.
So there we go. We've now tripped the security alarm. We now know that we could potentially face off against some soldiers as well as just the wild beasts now. But I'm pretty sure we're coming close to a cutscene, which will be the end of this episode. So yeah, essentially all you have to do, we have to climb up here, and then I'm pretty sure there is this battle here with all of these crawlers, and then I think we're done. So I'm just going to quickly Quake is good. Quake is always helpful. But ultimately the roll level is what we want to go for. And similarly, if we can, 350. So there we go. Nice. Paradigms are good. I mean, so I'll show you the ability Quake. So Quake is a technique, much like summoning your Eidolon, so it uses TP points. But the beauty of Quake is essentially it's a ground type attack, and it only damages enemies that are obviously on the ground. But the beauty of it is that if you've got a scenario like this, where you've got all of these enemies, where you want to stagger loads of enemies at once, Quake is beautiful, because what Quake does is it just hits all the enemies on the floor, and if they're all on the floor, then you can just immediately just wanted to be a bit careful because we were losing health there, but there you go, nice and simple, very, very quick, and yeah, get a nice chunk of CP. The Christian gem points, that went well. So there we go. So yeah, so that's the beauty of Quake, and we use Quake a lot in sort of in essentially conflicts where you've got loads and loads of enemies at once, and you want to stagger them all at the same time. We're going to get a cutscene here, and then after that, it will be the end of this episode.
What's eating you? Okay, I can tell you're hung up on something. Is it the Lassie thing? It's Snow, isn't it? What happened with him?
You wouldn't understand.
You and I are partners, Hope.
My mother was killed because of him. It's his fault. he needs to pay for it. I'm not ready yet, but I will be soon. That's why I followed you. Snow dragged us all into this. You and me, your sister Sarah. He's gotta pay. Gotta be stronger.
I'll take the lead.
So there we go. That is finally Lightning learns what's going on inside Hope's little head, and she decides to take control and take lead of the party from now on. Thankfully, we don't need to obviously adapt our paradigm to the same people. But yeah, no, you just get to play as Lightning now rather than as Hope. But no, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of my Let's Challenge of Final Fantasy XIII. Another successful episode, no deaths, all the good stuff. In the next episode, we will continue to make our way through Chapter 5. I would expect it would probably be maybe another 2 episodes here in Chapter 5. Maybe one long one. I can't exactly remember how long the next section is, but I would expect it would probably be another 2 episodes to finish off Chapter 5, and then we'll get into Chapter 6, which is one of my favourite chapters in the game, so I'm looking forward to that. But no, yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope you will join me on the next.